He has been called the greatest shooter of all time by me on one of his mom's Facebook posts. He's also been called a dimer. I'm pretty sure he came up with that one himself. And I'm not talking about LeBron or Curry. I'm talking about the walking bucket, a nickname that not only describes his shooting ability 18% of the time, but also his max speed on the court, which is roughly similar to my walking speed. Of course, I'm talking about St. Thomas More legend and current Calvary star Cole Manuzak, who showed off his brilliance once again on Tuesday against Faith Baptist when, with seconds left in the third quarter, got the ball in his hands, waved off his teammates, and stared down his defender. He looked back at the clock on the table to see 2 seconds left, then lofted a no-look deep three that made its way into the net as time expired. After the shot, as you can imagine, he was embraced by his teammates. Oh, no, wait, sorry, I misspoke. He was embraced by the opposing team, who, enamored by his legendary play, crowded around him, completely abandoning every rule we know about competition, ignoring the fact that they had one more quarter to play, that they were down by 29 points, and they had just been shot on right in the face. They embraced the saying, if you can't beat them, join them. They acted like they just won a trip to Disney World, much to the delight of their head coach, I am sure. It was a sight I've never before witnessed in all my years. But honestly, it doesn't surprise me, because when you are in the same space as a hero and a legend, you tend to let all rational thought go out the window. We are truly blessed here at Calvary to be in the presence of such an extraordinary athlete as Cole. Welcome back to the CCA Lions podcast. And in all seriousness, going back to that game on Tuesday, that did happen. Cole made a three with the seconds running out in the third quarter, and the opposing team gets off the bench and crowds around him as if he was on their team and he just won the game for them. And as a coach, from my perspective, and some people might disagree with me on this, and that's okay. Um, when you are down, you still have time left to play. I'm all about sportsmanship, but I watching that left me absolutely speechless. I've never seen it before, and I'm not saying like it shouldn't happen. Like you give a guy a high five and say great, great shot, whatever. Um, but if you're gonna do that, wait till after the game is over. It for me it just kind of looked like Faith Baptist had just been like, yeah, we're not gonna win this game. We give up. It doesn't even matter how much time is left. But I don't know. That's just the way I thought about it. I think about it. But Tuesday was a great game for both the guys and the girls. And speaking of Cole, he's been at Calvary the last 2 years, and I've coached him as for soccer, and he definitely has grown as a leader. I've seen that. And on the basketball court, he's not the type of person that's gonna consistently fill up the stat sheet. But the one thing that he is consistent in is his leadership and the effort that he puts out on the court. Currently, he's leading the team in assists, which just shows that his team play and his selflessness. And he really is a really great player for us. So I thought, just thought that would be a good thing to talk about right here in the beginning. But going on to the games, this week we only had games against Faith Baptist, and the girls won their game 36-24. It was not entirely just an easy game, I would say. We came out in the first half, and Calvary played really, really well. Great defense and offense. Faith Baptist was able to move the ball around a lot, get some open shots, and there definitely were some shots where they may have been a little too open. And so going into halftime, I think defensively we had to get a little bit better. There was a period in the third quarter where Faith Baptist started to make a little bit of a comeback. I think at one point they had trimmed the deficit to just 5 points. I think it was like 27-22 at one point. And then Calvary, though, was able to finish off the game and be able to get that win. So halfway through the girls' conference schedule, so they have 8 total conference games halfway through now. They're 3-1, which is about as good of a start as you could ask for. On Tuesday, the team shot 27%. They had 43 rebounds. This is now the 6th game that they've played this season out of 8 where they've had 40-plus rebounds. They also had 10 assists, which is the most assists that they've had in a game, and 21 steals. The leading scorer for the game was Madeline Hensley, who had 11.7 rebounds and 3 steals. Some other contributors was Lexi Gillespie with 9 points and 5 rebounds. Leanna Masseuse had 8 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 steals. And then Kayla Young had 3 assists and 5 steals, and Lauren Burek had 4 assists and 3 steals. So they got contributions from a lot of different people. And now after week 2 for the girls, the standings are Concord in fifth at 0-2, Faith Baptist in fourth, 1-3, Fairwinds in third, 1-1, and then Calvary is in second, 3-1, and Greenwood is in first at 2-0. So right now, the only teams that have played 4 games are Faith Baptist and us for the girls' side, and the other teams have only played 2. So looking in the next week, our girls won't be playing. They actually don't have a game, I think, until February 7th, so they have some time off from games. And all the other teams have quite a bit of games next week, so that those standings will kind of shake out a little bit more as we go into next week. And then moving over to the boys, they got a win. It was their first win of the season, so then now they are 1-7 on the season and 1-3 in conference play. But they got the win over Faith Baptist 51-26. And last week I had talked about how they were without 2 of their starters. And I had said once we get them back, we'll be at full strength. Well, then turns out that for Tuesday's game, they were without one of their starters and one of their guys who come off the bench. So again, they were, they got the win, but they were in a game where they weren't at full strength. But the team played really well, both offensively and defensively. First 3 quarters, they absolutely dominated Faith Baptist, and it wasn't really close. Fourth quarter, we were able to put the guys in who don't get much playing time, which is always a good thing to see. The team shot 50%, which is really excellent. Had 16 steals and 35 rebounds as well. Evans Armintrading in his game back, he missed 2 games last week. He had 26 points. Which is a career high for him, 4 rebounds and 7 steals. Nate Kaufman, who missed all 3 games last week, came back and had 8 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 steals. Tyler Kuhn had 6 points and 8 rebounds, and then coming off the bench, Cole Manuzak had 3 assists and 3 steals for the team. Looking at the standings after week 2, in 6th place is Faith Baptist, who is 0-4. Chestertown is 0-1. They just played their first game of the season or of the conference play on Friday against Fairwinds. So they're 0-1. In 4th place is Calvary, 1-3. In 3rd place is Concord, 2-0. 2nd place, Greenwood, 2-0. And Fairwinds is currently in 1st place at 3-0. And those top 3 teams, Fairwinds, Greenwood, Concord, have not played each other yet. And most of those games, or some of those games, are happening this upcoming week. So those top 3 teams, things are definitely going to shake up. And as for Calvary, looking ahead to next week for the boys, on Monday, the JV boys will be traveling down to Salisbury, Maryland to take on Salisbury Christian. And then on Tuesday, our varsity boys will be hosting Central Christian in a non-conference game at 5:30 at Calvary. So there will be no conference games next week for any of our teams. And so that is a look at this past week and a look ahead. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to start our year in review series that I've been talking about, and we're going to start with the first year that Calvary joined the DVCAC, which was the 2010-11 season. So I'll be back shortly. Welcome back. Sorry about those sound cutouts in that first segment. I don't know what happened to the microphone, but I'm not going to re-record that thing. So now starting our year in review, starting with 2010 and 11. So what I've been doing the past couple weeks when I've had the time is just compiling information from past seasons around Calvary sports. And one of the things I've been using is a website called Max Preps that we use. And basically it's like the ESPN of high school sports. So all the teams that are in our league uses Max Preps, and you put in your schedule and roster and stats, and there's standings on there and other things. The only thing with max preps is it's very subjective in terms of like, in order for the information to be accurate, somebody has to put in the accurate information and be consistent about that. So, in going through all of our sports and all our seasons, I found that there are some games that are missing stats or that are missing scores. And so I've had to kind of try to fill in the blanks a little bit on some things, which, is kind of unfortunate. But I'm going to present, in this podcast as I go through this series, you with as much information as I have. And for the most part, I have everything. I'm, probably only missing things here and there. But let's go ahead and get started with this. So in 2009, we I do know that Calvary started the process to join the DVCAC. So this is not like 2010-11 is not the first year that Calvary had sports. They had sports beforehand. I just don't have any of that information, and I don't know what happened during those years. So I'm starting with the years that I do have, and so I do know that Calvary played. So the way the DVCAC is set up, if you want to join the league, you have to, put in the request to do it, and it has to be approved by the ADs. Then you have to play a probationary year where you play, but you can't play for playoffs or championships or anything like that. And then after that year, the ADs vote again and say, yeah, we want them in or not. And that's just based off of, you know, sportsmanship and the way they feel like you fit into the league and stuff like that. So 2009-10 season was our probationary year. We played the sports, and then we were eventually brought in. So 2010-11, so we'll focus on fall 2010. So boys soccer. I don't know if there was girls volleyball that year because there's nothing on Max Preps, and I don't have any information on that. So I am going to go with the best of my knowledge and say that there was no volleyball that year. And if I'm wrong on that, I apologize. And if somebody knows differently, let me know. But boys soccer in the fall, I do know that going into the season, it was really like Chestertown and Concord's year to win the championship for boys soccer, which both teams ended up losing the first or the semifinals of playoffs, and they played each other in the third place game. And so that kind of started our rivalry with Chestertown. I know when I played for Calvary between 2012 and 2014, that was like our rival was Chestertown. And so this is really when it started, was when we first joined the league. It was kind of Chestertown's year. It was also really, I think Concord felt like it was their year. But Calvary had a pretty big junior class that year who had a lot of really great athletes on it. And then I do know that there were a couple of other like homeschool players that came to Calvary. I know of one or two who were also pretty good that helped with the success of this first season. So the first 7 games for the boys soccer season, they went 7-0. Those wins, they had 2 against Chestertown, 2 against Concord, 1 against Fairwinds in the league, and then they also beat Faith Baptist and Greenwood once each. And at this time, Faith Baptist and Greenwood were not in the conference. And so, unfortunately, I don't have any stats from this season, and I don't know the scores. I just know whether games were win, losses, or ties, and the final record and stuff like that. So they started out 7-game win streak, and then their the game that broke that win streak was a tie versus Fairwinds. And I knew that there was a tie. I just didn't know what game it was. So I asked the head coach at the time if he remembered, and he kind of said it could have been against Fairwinds, and it could have been against Salem. He wasn't sure, but he did know that the reason it was tied was because the game wasn't finished. They started the game, and there was an insane amount of rain that kept stopping the ball just like dead in puddles. And so they eventually suspended the game, and it was resulted in a tie. So I went back and I found like historical records, like an almanac, I guess, and looked at the schedule that I had. and try to figure out, okay, which game was it that tied. And on October 1st of 2010, in Bear, Delaware, which is where Fairwinds is located, there was 3.26 inches of rain that day. So I am pretty fairly certain that that is the game that resulted in a tie. So, and then after that game, they had four more conference games in which the soccer team went 4-0, and those there was two against Salem and two against Victory Christian, which was located in New Jersey, who is no longer in the league anymore. So the boys had, during the regular season, they went 11-0-1. They went 10-0 in conference play, so they went undefeated in conference play, ended up winning the regular season trophy. And then for the playoffs, in the semifinal, they played against Concord, who, like I said, was, Concord was and Chestertown were supposed to be the teams that were win the championship. They beat Concord in the semifinals. Fairwinds played Chestertown in the semifinals, and Fairwinds won that game. So then in the championship game, it was between us and Fairwinds, and we ended up winning that game. So first ever sports season for Calvary in the DVCAC, first ever season for the boys soccer program. Undefeated, 13-0-1, regular season champs, DVCAC champs. And so, about as good a start as you can get. Moving on to the winter sports. So we had girls basketball and boys basketball. The girls basketball team finished their season 10-9. However, they went only 2-8 in conference play, and the other 8 wins that they had were all non-conference opponents. So some of those were, they beat Smyrna Christian twice, they beat Greenwood twice, they beat the Cross Christian twice. Milford Christian at the time, I don't believe, was in the conference, and they beat them twice. So most of their wins came from non-conference games. So they were 2-8 in conference play, which they finished 5th place out of 6. And the way the playoffs were set up, and this is mostly for basketball, I think this is the way the league has done playoffs, is that like first and second have the bye in the first round, and so third plays the 6th seed and fourth plays the 5th seed. And so in the playoffs, Calvary played Salem, who finished in 4th, and Calvary ended up losing that game 34-21. And so first season, they, not a great way to start it off, but and this, as we get further into it, I'll talk about some of the players that were on this team that set the foundation for the success that our girls basketball team in particular had in the next couple years after this. Some stats that I do have from this season is our leading scorer that season was Shayna Cole. She averaged 13.7 points, and Kirsten Torsky averaged 5.6 rebounds. Shayna also averaged 6.4 steals a game that season. And then the boys basketball, they finished the season 11-6 overall. They went 7-5 in conference play and finished in 3rd place, just behind Concord and a school called Gospel of Grace, which was located in Philadelphia. And they're no longer part of the league anymore. And so going into the playoffs, they played the 6th seed Fairwinds, and they won that game 52-33. And then their next game was against Gospel of Grace, which, looking at, I'm not entirely sure how they did the matchups, because looking at it now, generally speaking, you would have the higher seed play the lowest seed. But for some reason, Calvary, who was in 3rd place and was a higher seed than Chestertown, who was in 5th place, they ended up playing the number 1 seed, Gospel of Grace, and Chestertown played Concord, who was the 2 seed. So I don't know how that happened or was decided, but Calvary ended up losing to Gospel of Grace in the semifinal, 58-30, and they had to play in the consolation game, which for most leagues, I don't know if they necessarily do a consolation game. For the DVCAC, they do. So the two losing teams in the semifinal play for third place. So Calvary played Chestertown this first season, and Calvary ended up winning that game 61-50. And for the championship, Gospel of Grace played Concord, and Concord ended up winning that game 47-43. So Concord was the DVCAC boys basketball champions that season. And then in the spring, we had girls soccer, so spring of 2011. The girls ended up in the first season going 4-7 overall, 4-6 in their conference play, which they finished fourth out of 6 teams. And in the semifinal round, they played Salem, who, again, as we get more into the series, Salem was definitely the rival for our girls soccer team. They lost to them 4-0, and I am not entirely sure if girls soccer, so girls soccer for the league they haven't had a season since 2018. So this upcoming spring is the first season they've had since then. So it's been about 3 or 4 years, and I have little knowledge of like past soccer seasons for girls specifically, and I don't have any information on any of the consolation games. So I don't know if there ever was any girls consolation games or if they just did a championship. But Calvary ended up losing to Salem in the semifinal. I don't know if they played in a consolation game, but then the championship game for the girls in the 2011 season, Salem beat Fairwinds 5-3 to take home the trophy. So, and then some stats from the girls that I have is leading goal scorers that season was Sarah Eccles. She had 7. Paula Byler had 6, and Shayna Cole had 5. And then assists, Shayna Cole had 2. Paula Byler also had 2. And I don't know if necessarily those assists were actually super accurate, but definitely after this first season when there was a lot of stats that were lacking, it picked up after going into the 11-12 season. There's much more accurate stats and schedules, which is a good thing. But overall, the first season for Calvary playing in the DVCAC, all the teams had an overall record of 38, 22-1, which is about a 62% winning percentage. And then some of the achievements that we had, the boys soccer, like I said, won the regular season trophy, and then they won the DVCAC championship. And then for boys basketball, they won the 3rd place trophy for the DVCAC. So that is just a brief overview of what I have from this first season. And like I said, I'm going to continue doing this. And as we get into further seasons, there will be more information which I will be able to give to you. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and I hope you have a great day.